Hey guys, Wayback Rewind here. This is part 5 of my analog to digital conversion series. Today I'm going to look at the ClearClick. If you want to capture video and audio to digital format without using a computer, the ClearClick is pretty much the gold standard. I'm not sponsored, so this is something I purchased with my own money to give it a try. It came with high reviews. I've never used it before. I'm going to unbox it here for you live, and then we're going to try it out. Today on Wayback Rewind. So let's get started. We're going to unbox this here on live video, and we're going to see what makes the ClearClick the gold standard for digital to analog conversion. So this is version 3.0. We're going to unbox it here. You're seeing it for the first time as I am. This is the box itself. It's a pretty nice package here. There's a temporary screen protector. I may leave the temporary screen protector on there forever. I don't know, I usually like to not peel those off. On the top here we have a lot of cool things here. We have a DC, USB-C, looks like, a micro SD slot, an S-video, an AV in, an HDMI out, and a USB. You can hook up a flash drive there to store all your videos. Those are all the connections. I don't see any more connections anywhere else on here. It would have been nice if there was a mount here to connect it to a camera to do a tapeless system, but we'll talk about that in another video. And everywhere else, you have these 4 buttons. Instructions. And let's see what's down here. What kind of accessories we got. Okay, got some good cables in here. Looks like an AV cable. Or is that just audio? That's an audio cable to left and right. This is an AV cable with RCA on both ends. We've got our USB-C, which is for power, and a little power brick here. The unboxing is now complete. Okay, so I've got the ClearClick here. I've got my TRV 460, and I've got a couple of cables. I will point out that despite having a box full of cables, if you have a camcorder like this, or if you have a camcorder that does not have the RCA plugs on it, none of the cables that are in the box will work for you. You will have to have a proprietary cable that plugs into your camera, and I'm using the S-video cable, also which is not supplied. To connect to the ClearClick, I will need to use these sets of cables and then plug it into the camera. That's all pretty straightforward. I'll plug in the audio, just the red and the white. I don't need to plug in the yellow because I'm using the S-video, but just so it's not dangling off to the side, I'll plug in the yellow. Then plug in the S-video. Now the connections are done here. I'll plug my dubbing cable into the AV outlet here. Now we'll plug the S-video into the front of the camera, like this. Now the connections to the camera are complete. Now I need to insert a memory card into the ClearClick. Insert it with the copper facing you. You might need a little bit of a fingernail to do this because it's kind of recessed. You can see that. Now everything is connected and ready to go. I just need to power it up. Speaking of power, you may notice that there are no power cables connected to either one of these devices. So the camera obviously runs on battery power, and the ClearClick runs on battery power. One of the nice things about this setup is you have a totally wireless way to dub videos. The ClearClick is powering up. The device is ready to go. I could just hit record and start recording, but I'm going to walk you through some of the menus. First of all, before I run through the menu, I will confess that I took several hours to play with this device and test it out before I continued the video, so I would have a good working knowledge of how this device works. So having said that, I will run you through some of the menus of how this system works. There's really not a lot going on here. Most of the things on here are self-explanatory, like language. It gives you quite a few languages: English, French, German, Spanish, Italian, Japanese, Russian, simplified and traditional Chinese. The only language I speak is English, so we'll do that. Date and time setting, it's pretty obvious. Watermark. Watermark is not something I would use if I'm transferring video from a 20-year-old tape, but if, let's say I had this hooked up to a security camera, watermark might be useful to show today's time and date, or the date that I'm actually recording it. For signal loss detection, let me describe what that is. The intent there is that the ClearClick will discover that there's no longer a signal, it will pause, and then when the signal resumes, it will continue recording. And in theory, that sounds great, but in practice what I found is when my camera reached a blank spot, it would go to a blue screen, and the ClearClick would not recognize that as a loss of signal, so it would continue to record blue screen. So there's really not a whole lot of benefit to that. To me, it introduces the possibility that it could stop when it's not supposed to, and it might not resume when it needs to. So I would just not check that box, and I would just do it manually. I would rather the ClearClick to record blue screen and to record no signal than to accidentally not record something that I need. Auto stop recording. The point there is that you could record for an hour or 2 hours or some amount of time and then stop. This would be useful if you know your tape is 60 minutes long or 120 minutes long. You set it to record, and then when you're done, it can stop. Video size. It doesn't give you a lot of options for video size. It has auto detection, which is really 720 by 480, and then it will also record at 640 by 480, which is pretty much the same thing. There are no other options for video size. Video source, you have S-Video or AV. We're going to use S-Video. Audio or video. You can do audio only, which audio only makes it kind of nice for audio recorder. Audio type, MP3 or WAV. Default storage, SD card or USB. Schedule recording. You could use this as a mini VCR, connect it to some type of device. And other than that, that's pretty much it. Notice what you don't see on here. There are no quality settings. It records pretty much everything at the same quality. There are no bit rate. There are no frame rate. There's no frame size. It basically records everything at the same quality. So if you like lots of options, this really isn't for you. Speaking of frame size, one of the things you'll notice is that this is a 16:9 screen. There are no 16:9 recording options. There are no 16:9 playback options. So everything that this will display is going to be stretched. That's really kind of strange. I guess there are just no economical 4:3 screens that you can buy in China, and so they just went with a 16:9. It's ready to go. If I play my camera, so what's on the camera shows up on the screen, and all I have to do is press one button and press record. If you can see up here, the timer is counting off the record time. This little timer down here, this is embedded in the tape. I happen to just have that turned on to show when it was recorded. I can turn that off in the camera if I don't want that to be recorded. This up here is today's time and date. It just always shows in the machine. There's no way to turn that off. It's not recorded unless you ask for it to be recorded. I'm going to zoom this out a little bit. So if you compare the image on this screen to the image on this screen, you're going to notice that the image on the 16:9 screen is stretched. It's not recorded as stretched, and it won't play back as stretched on the card as it's inserted to any type of device, but when you play it on here, it will appear stretched. There's no way to change that. There are no options to pillar box it for the correct aspect ratio. That's just more of an annoyance. To stop, you press record again. This little record icon up here shows that it's in record mode. You can press OK to pause it while you're recording. These two buttons double as volume. Otherwise, these 4 buttons are cursor buttons. So the question is, how well does it record? So to play back, I press the mode button. This is snapshot mode. And then you get to playback mode. I'm going to darken this down so you can see it a little bit. It might be a little difficult to see as I'm manipulating the buttons. Now, one of the things that is annoying, there is no index. There's no way I can show an index of what's on this card other than to see 1 out of 9. I've recorded 8 previous videos when I was just playing around with this, and it reverse numbers them. The most recent one is number 1, which makes no sense because as soon as I add 1, there'll be a new number 1. This index is of limited use. It does put the time that was recorded, and it also shows the month and the date as the file name. Now, if I put that into my computer, I can use that information, but there's no way to see an index on here. I can scroll through this, and I can see other recordings that I made. As I scroll through this, there's the recording that I just made. If I want to play it, I press OK. I'm going to come in real tight to see if you can see this. I don't know if you can see this, but the screen is glitching off to the right. I found this to be very disappointing. The screen itself is glitching. I thought to myself, this is defective. I want to send it back. I went online and I looked. I found this glitching is a very common problem that a lot of people have with these devices. Now here's the good news. I took the SD card out, put it into my computer, and the glitching is not in the file.
Yeah, that.
Yeah, the fact that they put their managers on the thing.
Good shot.
The glitching somewhere is within this machine in taking the image off of the SD card and putting it to the screen. There's some flaw in the video driver. I don't know how they could bring this to market with a flaw in the video driver. I honestly don't. And I'm on the fence as to whether or not this is going to be acceptable or if I need to send it back. Because the glitching is more of an annoyance. It's not in the final product. It's not something that is going to harm its ability to record analog video and digitize it. But to have something that you cannot watch it out in the field without it glitching, to me is just kind of ridiculous. So one last thing I wanted to try. There is an HDMI out port here. I'm going to connect this to my HDMI port on my TV and see, number one, how it looks, and see if the glitching is there. Whenever you plug in to the HDMI port, this screen shuts off, and the screen on your HD TV will show the display of the ClearClick. You can play the video from there, and the good news is the screen on the TV is not glitching. So the glitching is more of an annoyance. It's not a deal breaker necessarily. This device will do what it's supposed to do. It will record analog video. It will store it on the SD card. It will make it very simple for you to get your video into the computer by putting it directly onto a micro SD card. So it will do everything it needs to be able to do.
Yeah.
Having said that, I am seeing some glitching on the TV. It's not as much, it's not as bad, but I am seeing some minor glitching on the TV output. So as a recording device, this thing does everything it needs to do. As a playback device, it has some limitations. Playing back on the screen, results in stretched images, playing back on an HDMI monitor, has some glitching in addition to stretched aspect ratio, which your TV might be able to compensate for, but it's not as nice as it could be. So ladies and gentlemen, where does that leave us with the ClearClick? I already told you I'm not sponsored. I bought this with my own money, and to be honest with you, I'm disappointed. I had higher expectations for it. The glitching screen, I'm not convinced is acceptable. I need to sleep on it, but I'm right on the fence between sending this back as defective. The software feels very clunky. It's the best word I can think of. It doesn't feel like a released product. It feels like something that Steve Jobs might have built in his garage, 30 years ago. No offense to the ClearClick company. I'm really just not as impressed with this device. I wanted to love it. I'm right on the fence between finding it minimally acceptable and sending it back as defective. So that's where we are. Out of the 5 methods I've used to convert analog video into digital, this is the first one where I ran into issues that made me think that this is not something I would recommend. I definitely do not recommend you buy the ClearClick if you want a problem-free video player. As a video player, it leaves a lot to be desired. There's no headphone jack. You could not take this with you somewhere and expect to use it as a field monitor without having significant issues with the aspect ratio problem and the glitching. I think you might be better spending your money on a higher quality device. That's just where I am with it. And if you stuck with me this long, I appreciate it. Like or subscribe to my channel, and thanks for watching.